Speaking of ancient places, we are here in an ancient place, and this is an ancient city. I'm not sure if you recall the buildings here, but this is the city of Sana'a, where I come from. The capital of Yemen, one of the oldest cities in the world. It's said to have been built by the son of Noah. And that interesting and remarkable historic place where I was born became my first. It was my first home, but then again, I moved all the way to the north, all the way to Örebro. A remarkable thing I've never even had dreamt of happened, because I joined a program at Örebro University called Master of Global Journalism, and those few years that I spent there changed my life. And let me tell you how. When my teacher, Roland Stambridge, called me and told me that you needed to do a media project, what is it that you wanted to do? So I thought to myself, perhaps I would try to help my own countrymen. The thing is that in Yemen, not all media is free. So I decided to build this portal. It's called Yemen Portal. And the idea behind it is that it aggregates news and content from all sources all over the internet, from things like blogs, media, videos, but the only condition is that they had to be on Yemen. What's going on, who is talking, and different opinions being said. The thing is that I made sure that I remained neutral. This news engine, like News Google and so forth, I'm not sure if News Google is neutral, but mine was. So I made sure that critical voices, dissident voices, everyone who had an opinion or had a news item would be there. So I thought this was a breakthrough. My professors and everyone was happy, and things were okay, and we all were naive, because the Yemeni government shut it down, shut access to it from within Yemen. They censored the website on 19th of January 2008, and then I inquired, why is it that they censor a website that had really no one direction? I mean, it wasn't purely against the government, it was open for everyone. But then I was told they didn't like the critical voices against the regime, many of which articles that were calling for the downfall of Saleh, the end of his regime. And this actually, mind you, this was in 2008, and it was way before the Arab Spring. So people were there voicing an opinion, calling for the end of the regime. And I said, so be it, let them express their opinions, but the authorities didn't like it. So it was quite a tough moment, because many of my colleagues said, you're really beginning to put yourself in trouble, and the regime wouldn't like that. So I had actually basically two options. I was blacklisted as one of the troublemakers in Yemen, so I was given two options. One of them is to shut down the website totally and then be removed of the off list and not create any trouble. The other option was to simply filter content. So I'd actually ask the authorities which websites, which articles you didn't like, and then they'd give me a list and I go on and filtering it. But then during that period, while I was still struggling, and within me, I actually thought these two options weren't really enough. I actually got support from an unlikely source, from Nerikes Alahanda, all the way in Sweden. I was really, touched at the time, because I was still in Yemen by the time the website was blocked. I went to Yemen actually, and it was blocked while I was in Yemen. And I called my professors telling them, you know what, maybe I'll be late. Things didn't turn out well. But he said, let's help you. And this is what came out. And it extended, for me, it meant that we are actually building bridges, connecting cultures. A student of Yemeni origin in Sweden, going back, doing research, finding his website blocked, his university, calls the media, publishes a story in the Swedish press. Where would that be? I mean, it was truly an emotional thing. So that drove me to think, then I wouldn't simply let it go. I will do something else. I will use the third option, and that was fight back. And mainly what I thought of doing is turning the idea of censorship on its head. And in fact, every single website that was censored in Yemen would have a special section in a new website that I would actually have dozens of mirrors of. So if you had a story that was censored, you'd find a place here that's circulated and sent to all over the internet, and many people would actually now learn what the government does not want you to learn, or what the government is hiding from you. So in this way, I would actually propagate the message that the government didn't like. So, in fact, it actually had a positive impact, because people now in Yemen were able to see that the government is not really at ease. It has issues with certain content. And they began to reflect and understand, maybe it is something that's important there that's hidden from us. And then something bad happened. My car, this was my car in Yemen, and it was vandalized. And usually these are the tricks that authoritarian regimes do when they send a message. They didn't find a way to combat me virtually, so they ended up doing it in the real world. And that's basically a big difference between having a virtual attack and having a real attack. And then came a second dilemma. Now I had an opportunity to really take my struggle, not only in virtual world, but maybe somewhere else. But then I had to make a tough decision, because I remembered another car, a car that actually lasted in my memory forever. It was the car that crushed and actually accidentally allegedly accidentally killed one of the most prominent editors in Yemen, who was a critical voice against the regime. He was an independent journalist who had fought so hard to reveal corruption and end injustice in Yemen through his writings. And the thing is that he was actually an idol, not only for me, for many others, an example. But also for me in particular, it was seriously, when he died, I really felt bad, because he was actually my father. And he was killed in an accident that later was never investigated. And we all suspect that it may have been an assassination. But Abdulaziz Saqaf had led me to do this. He informed me with the notion that you should never give up on your dreams. So I developed something more of a reaction to what happened in Yemen, and not only covering Yemen, but covering the whole world. I developed this program. It's called Al-Kasir, meaning the circumventer in Arabic. The idea behind it is that it allows you to divide the internet to two realms and spheres. One of them is the regular internet that's not censored, and the other is the censored internet, where you know for sure that the government doesn't want you to access. And I made sure that whatever is on the censored side is reached by the software in an encrypted form, so people would access information encryptedly. While when accessing regular content that is not censored, they just go through the regular channels. And in fact, this had actually resulted in many good things. It helped me even in my own career, where the university recognized this and gave me an award. You can see me smiling and happy. That was the day when I learned about this surprise award. And it just shows you that connections can happen between cultures in different nations, in different areas. I from Yemen and this in Sweden. So it really resembled to me the human element of things. All of us struggling for freedom. Regardless of where you live, regardless of what you do, we all have this common bond of wanting to be free. So I put off the notion of government censorship as a constantly evolving phenomenon. From 2008 and 2009, it developed to become very serious in 2010, to a degree that many users in Tunisia, for example, in China, in Iran, in even Egypt, had suffered from this form of censorship. So I decided that let us go out to the world, and this is the result. People using the program all over the world to access censored content in their countries. And this had actually resulted in many people accessing content and delivering content. In Egypt, it happened during the Arab Spring. In Syria, it's happening today, where people contact me and tell me how useful this tool was. It's not just the only tool that's used. There are many others as well. But the idea is that we needed to fight tyranny through different ways, and this was one of them. The bottom line is that with information you are empowered. And when you know that there's injustice and when you share it among yourselves, this is the result. This is the Change Square in Sana'a, and this was one of the days when people stood up for change, demanded that the regime of Saleh end. And soon after, this is what happened. He resigned. And that is the sign of the power of information and the power of people coming together. And the thing is that this was actually celebrated last week, the first anniversary of him signing the GCC initiative, which let him leave power. So coming back to the old notion of not letting go of your dreams, I find this portrait quite remarkable. This is a portrait of my father who died for the cause of freedom, put right in the center of the Tahrir Square or the Change Square, where people gathered and rallied for change. And they had this sign saying, finally, we have prevailed. So you rest in peace. We took on the mission, and we made it possible, and we removed this tyranny. The thing is that one very important notion that I've always been learning from my dad was that you should do things not only for yourself, but for the next generation. This is one of the quotes that I've always remembered. It is the job of our generation to fight in order to level the field. We have to make sure that the next generation spends more time on being productive and less time in fending off the parasites and those who try to hold us back. And he said that with an eye on me as his son and my brothers and sisters. But the thing is that, unfortunately, he just didn't live to see the day that that would happen. So I find this exact quote something that I would say today to my next generation, is that I also need to find a way to help the next generation move on and being more productive and fend off these people who want us to stay back. So in the final words, these are the three daughters of mine. Rania on the left, Layla in the middle, and Sarah is on the right. Sarah was born in the US, and she is also an American citizen. And Rania, by the way, today is going to appear on SPT on a program called Lila Sport Spiegel. So wish her luck. So the idea behind this is that they need to also keep the dream alive. But my latest daughter, Layla, was born here with a syndrome, a genetic disease. She can't use her hands fully. And the Apert syndrome is the name of that. But I keep on thinking of her, just like my dad thought of his children, how to make you believe that you should always continue fighting, no matter what the obstacles, no matter where you are in the world. If you're in Sweden, in the US, in Yemen, or elsewhere, there's always a common cause to be free and to achieve your dreams. So this is what I would like to tell her every day. No matter what others say, never give up your dreams. Thank you very much.